I belong to a family in the nuts industry since 1887.
You're a sixth
I'm
generation
a sixth
entrepreneur.
generation, and I pretty much have nuts in my blood. We were traveling to California with my father, where he was sourcing the almonds from, and observed the trends on how people were consuming nuts more like snacks. Why can't we have this in India? Back then, the concept of snacking was only on chips and samosas. So I wanted to disrupt the 60,000 crore unorganized dry fruit industry in India.
How people perceive nuts, dry fruits, how has that evolved?
You have to give them ways to make it easier to consume the product. You have to play with that psyche. Sometimes you have to state the obvious. We launched a product called the Sports Mix. We positioned the product like that. It could have been named as mixed dry fruits.
Where are the customers coming from? Are nuts still a very luxurious tier 1 category, or is it across the country?
The beauty with nuts is that everyone's a consumer. The younger generation is consuming it for health. Our parents' generation, they are also looking at it like a healthy snack now. It takes a village to build a brand. You cannot do it alone. Competition is great. It's helping the market evolve.
How do founders like you evolve with such fast evolving trends in the market?
You have to lighten the load so that you can fly faster.
Hello. Before we get started with this episode, I quickly wanted to share that we are now a part of
01 Network by Zerodha.
Thank you so much for watching.
Welcome to the Indian Silicon Valley podcast. I'm your host Jivraj, and today we have a very interesting guest. This founder has built in a space for the last 15 odd years, bootstrapped a 100 crore plus brand with customer behavior evolving very, very fast. Join me in welcoming Dinika Bhatia, who is the founder and CEO of Nutty Gritties, a 100 plus crore brand in the dry fruits market, building in a space bootstrapped in a competitive environment and doing this phenomenally well. Thank you so much, Dinika, for being on the show.
Thank you, Jivraj, for having me and for such a kind introduction.
No, it's phenomenal what you've built, because I'm a prominent consumer as well. As the health wave picks up, we've all seen these brands come up and they're now more in prominence, but you've been doing this for like decades now, right?
Yeah.
More than a decade. And you started at a time where it was not like D2C was not a buzzword. Building a brand was not the buzzword. People weren't talking about healthy snacking or snacking for that matter. So I want to understand all of it. Where we can start is maybe how consumer behavior in your mind has changed, right? Like from starting in 2009 when dry fruits or maybe just nuts weren't as big a thing, to now where it seems like it's gaining way more prominence. How has the landscape evolved and how have you sort of evolved in that, and where the journey has taken shape? Would love to know that, and let's take it from there.
Yeah, sure. So I actually started way back in 2009 when I founded the business, although the idea actually cropped into my mind when I was 16 years old. We had a small plant of nuts and dry fruits. I belong to a family in the nuts industry since 1887.
You're a sixth
I'm
generation
a sixth
entrepreneur.
generation, and I pretty much have nuts in my blood. And I would overhear conversations between my father and grandfather and uncle just talking about, almonds, pistachios, cashews, sourcing them from all over the world and selling them across the country in wholesale. And that time also we were traveling a fair bit because I would travel to California with my father, where he was sourcing the almonds from, and observe the trends on how people are actually consuming nuts. They were consuming nuts more like snacks in trail mixes. There were bags of nuts at the end of aisles of restaurants and cafes that people would just grab and go. So I thought that why can't we have this in India? In India, we were just consuming it, soaking it overnight, having it in the morning, gifting it in Diwali, gifting it during weddings. But the concept of snacking was
Did not
only
exist.
on chips and samosas.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the health trend, right? I have always been a sports person. I used to play tennis and basketball, and I was a fitness freak from the get-go. And I was looking at solutions for myself, and my mom would make bags of trail mixes, homemade, which a lot of our parents have actually done in Ziploc bags.
Yes.
And coming from the dry fruit background, seeing the retail space evolve, trying to solve for my own need that I want something to grab and go when I'm going for my tennis or when I'm going to the gym or when I'm traveling, when I'm on the go. So I was like, this is such an opportunity in India to launch a packaged nuts brand that people can grab and go instead of having to, have their parents or someone at home just mix things together, put it in a Ziploc bag. And this is a thought that popped into my mind in 2005. and I started working on it. I had a small pop up at a Rakhi Mela, and it did really well when people tasted different flavors of cashews. That was my first validation. Then again, when I was in California, I was studying at University of Southern California, which was the land of nuts again. I saw more and more brands in retail shelves, in cafes, in restaurants, and I had to bring this concept to India. I also interned at the largest pistachio company in the world that currently does $1.5 billion of revenue just selling packaged pistachios.
Oh, wow.
And I thought that this is a huge opportunity because there was not a single packaged nuts brand on the shelves in India. So I wanted to disrupt the 60,000 crore unorganized dry fruit industry in India. And that's how Nutty Gritties started. Back then, in 2009, when I started though, when people started seeing the packages, they were like, okay, 200 grams is for 200 rupees, so 1 kg is for this much. So they started doing calculation in their head that how much it equates to per kg costing. There was a lot of resistance because we were not used to seeing our nuts and dry fruits as a snack, right? It was a luxury product. Now, luxury and festivals and shadis and soaking it overnight and having it in the morning. We were not able to see beyond that. And that's where innovation started. That's where I started thinking that what can we do differently so that people start looking at as a healthy snack rather than their dry fruits. How can we modernize the traditional nuts for India, for the health conscious consumer, for the younger generation, people who are into fitness, people who are on the go, people who have a lifestyle to keep up with. And that's where the flavor started. We did barbecue almonds, which is still a hit, and people love it. We launched the first trail mix in India. We launched a trail mix even during COVID called Mom's Superfood Mix. But being the first premium packaged nuts brand, then the first trail mix, the first flavored nuts brand. And that's how the entire innovation in Nutty Gritties started.
That's amazing. I think so many of the firsts that you mentioned, right? Like building a category by itself is just so challenging. I have two questions. At the start, like being a 22-year-old founder and not having this infrastructure, right? Like I don't know how popular Shopify was at the time, or how did you approach like a retailer, or how did you approach like a branding agency, or were you doing all of this by yourself? And what was the dinner table conversation like for a family that has been in B2B? I'm guessing like convincing them to go B2C and like telling them that this is your vision must have been very like different as a concept, right? And the industry also, from what I understand, is primarily like B2B supply and very fragmented. So tell us some of those, like what were those fundamental steps that you took to actually like break the cold start problem when the infrastructure wasn't set? Like today, if I'm even young and want to start a D2C brand, the playbooks are pretty set, right? Like, so there's so much established. What did you do at the time?
So, to be very honest, I think my family just wanted to humor me because they were like, okay, fine, this is what she wants to do. I'd made my business plan on Nutty Gritties while I was at university. I studied entrepreneurship, and that's where I even conceptualized the brand, the name, and everything. And they supported me, and they're like, okay, go ahead and do it. But when I founded Nutty Gritties, I was very clear that I want to build the best nuts brand in the world. I want to build the best food company in India, a company that's going to promote better health and spread the love. And that was my vision. That is still there. I still have the conviction that we have the ability and the possibility to do it. The dinner table conversations were around, how are you going to do this? Do you have any experience? And I was like, I don't know. I'm just going to focus on the next step. I was this 22-year-old founder who would walk into the offices of Reliance and Big Bazaar and Walmart and present the product. And you know what the category bought into? Is my passion and the belief in the product. They totally bought into it. And within 18 months, Nutty Gritties was there in every single modern trade chain in the country.
Wow.
That was a great success. How did I approach branding? I was having a conversation with my best friends who were visiting me, and I was like, I'm looking for a graphic designer to make the logo and packaging. And my friend is like, my brother's a graphic designer. I said, okay, cool, connect me. He connected me. I went the next morning to him, finalized it, and within a month, we had the packaging launched. So I always believed in like focusing on the next step. And that's something that still, continues. Because when we end up thinking very, very long term and very, very big, then we get overwhelmed, right? So it's all about just focusing on that next step. Then the next thing was, how do we get started? The first store that we started with was Modern Bazaar in Basant Vihar, which is one of our best selling stores right now as well. We currently have 50% market share in that store. But we started with one SKU, one store, which was roasted and salted pistachios at Modern Bazaar, Vasant Vihar. And I went there, met the founder, and he gave us space. We got a nice end cap. And on 3rd September 2009, we launched in Modern Bazaar. As soon as we had Modern Bazaar, I was like, okay, what are other stores like Modern Bazaar? Then there were a bunch of other stores in Delhi like that. I asked him only to connect me. And he was very kind enough to connect me to a bunch of different stores. I personally visited those stores, met with the owners or the shopkeepers, and there was, of course, a lot of resistance. But I convinced them to place a few packets. And for me, selling one packet was a big high. But for my father, selling one container was a big high.
Yeah.
And one container is 22 tons. And here I'm talking about one packet of 200 grams. So, for the first few years, he's like, "Mujhe nahi pata tum kya kar rahe ho? What is this? Is this really going to bear fruit?" And I did not care. For me, that was like white noise. I was only focused about taking Nutty Gritties out there in the market and just placing it in all different places. There was no social media. There was no Instagram. There was no Facebook. There was no Shopify. But there was the retail landscape. And that retail landscape is still the backbone of our country.
Yeah.
That is still the backbone of consumer brands. And the success of a consumer brand actually lies in cracking that. So in that journey of 16 years, we tried to build retail 3 or 4 times. We failed thrice. We failed miserably.
Right.
When I put the products out there in the first 18 months in all the modern trade stores in India, guess what? 50% of it came back. Because I only focused on putting the product out there. But what about convincing the consumer to buy the product?
Right.
There's primary sales and there's secondary sales. You have to focus on the offtake. And that was something that, of course, as a 22, 23-year-old, without any experience, I was not aware about. That's when I started thinking about building the team, hiring people who knew things that I don't know. That's when we had our first hire of someone who came from a retail background, who knew that, okay, it's not only about placing the product on the shelf, it's also about making sure the offtake happens and knowing how the offtake happens.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. I think there's a very core insight, right? Like if you believe in something, focus on the next step, execute, don't overcomplicate, and you'll probably figure it out, which stands to date, right? Like so,
100%.
for founders listening, I think that's a very very awesome insight, and I love how authentically you mentioned that. Thank you so much for sharing. Maybe let's go to the core business now, right? One of the major parts is the supply being figured out. That's the advantage you have, and that's the product advantage that you continue to date. Talk to us about what that means, right? In the larger scheme of things, do you think it's important to have one of the pies figured out? Like either you're a fantastic brander, marketeer, and can really, really sell, you have a distribution wedge, or you have a supply advantage that gives you real control over the product, that makes you really, really successful on the top of a phenomenal alpha product that nobody else can match. What was that like in your head, and how did the supply advantage really play a role in your journey?
I think it played the biggest advantage, and it still plays the biggest advantage because you have to identify what your pillar is, right? What your moat is, what other people don't have, what you have. And we had that backward integration figured out, the supply sorted. So we had the ability to get the best quality product at any given point of time at the best price. And I leveraged the hell out of it, and I still do. So we utilized that advantage to our ability. We still do that. And we get the best price and the best quality product. Raw material is the most important thing in any consumer brand as well, right?
Sure.
And one thing that people go wrong in is they'll, like you said, the best marketer, the best brand, the best whatever, the packaging.
Yeah.
But if you don't get the product right,
Yeah.
it's
None of that works.
It's all your money wasted. So what we focused on rather is getting our supply chain sorted, getting the quality of the product sorted, and then anything else.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, an Indian consumer wants great taste.
Yeah.
So you were asking about health. And even though people are health conscious, and people are very, very health conscious today, but they will not consume a product again if it doesn't taste good.
Absolutely.
So supply chain was very important to get the best pricing, to get the best working capital,
Yeah.
finance,
Yeah.
and the best quality product,
Absolutely.
which is actually the base. My father and grandfather actually taught me that always take care of two things in your business. First is finance and operations.
Yeah.
And then is all the,
The rest.
glorified stuff.
Yeah.
But without this base, this has no use. And this is why a lot of brands and companies also fail. In my journey of 16 years, I've seen hundreds of brands come and go, especially after COVID, right? And after COVID, the trail mixes category really took off because people were looking at healthy alternatives to snacking. And trail mixes also coming from a familiar category, which is nuts and dry fruits, because we're already used to having that. So that worked to our advantage, of course, because we didn't have to convince people that dry fruit khao. They were already convinced. The younger audience just wanted something different. They wanted something that was convenient. They wanted something that's cool. They wanted something that if they have it in their pocket or their backpacks and they take it out, they should feel good about having it. I'm not sure how good they'd feel about taking out a Ziploc and opening that. So we really leveraged the familiarity of the product as well. We understood that what is that we don't have to work on, and then what is it that we have to work on, keeping the business principles and the fundamentals intact, which was something thankfully I got from my family business, because they are conservative businessmen, and that conservative streak which has enabled me to keep that business bootstrapped and profitable from year one
That's
has
amazing.
been there.
Yeah.
So it's our 16th year in operations and our 16th year of profitability.
That's incredible in a world of D2C startups which are burning a lot of money because of those industries. I think this is a commendable feat. Can you further maybe like talk to us about learnings from the shop floor? Like what was that learning curve, right? Like, I mean, just dealing with like a factory, going to, source raw material. How do you still leverage that with like new product development? Like what is that like on ground insight of really being hands on as a founder with supply as well? Because today there are also industries in which you're contract manufacturing, so you maybe don't have that inside visibility to a factory floor, but since it runs in your blood and you've seen that inside out, what does that look like? And then what are the advantages, and how can, like, let's say younger founders leverage that insight to also replicate the same in their business?
Absolutely. I think it's extremely important, Jivraj. And, in the beginning, I spent 90% of my time either on the shop floor or in the market. And that's where you get your maximum insights from. People who are actually operating those machines and working with the product, they know much more than you do. And spending time with them will give you an ability to understand how do you even improve the quality of the product. So till date, actually, I end up going and spending time with them. When we have to do any innovation, I call the first employee who's still there, who's in charge of production today. I call him and I ask him that, what can we do better? When I travel across the world and I grab samples of brands, he's the first person who I give it to. His name is Shiv Kumar. So I call Shiv Kumar and I'm like, Shiv Kumar, I need you to see this. And he'd be like, yeah, we can make it better than this. And it's his conviction that kind of passes on to me. It takes a village to build a brand. You cannot do it alone. But there's one person who has to have that vision and conviction, which is what carries on across the organization. So that energy is very important to travel across the market, across the shop floor. And for me, I'm a very spiritual person. For me, it's also going to that shop floor to share my energy with the team. To share the vision, to share the passion, to share that belief, because that will actually give them the conviction to build. So whether it's innovation or whether it's, driving the fire, fueling the hunger, that is what is important in actually going out there and getting dirty. My entrepreneurship professor in college actually said this, that always get out there and get dirty. That's the job of an entrepreneur. And I've been keeping his word.
Absolutely. No, that's amazing to hear. Now we've understood supply. Let's maybe go to the customer side, right?
Yeah.
What is the insight to how people perceive nuts, dry fruits? How has that evolved? And then how do you make it, cool, attractive, ensure that they feel proud of having this on their sort of, bags in their households? What is the insight there? Do you have to modernize SKUs to the extent that, it becomes attractive? How has that evolved in each phase, right? Like, how was it in the 2010s? And now that there is more awareness, what is the insight to making people buy?
Yeah, sure. It has evolved a lot, Jivraj. As I mentioned, that in 2009-10, people were only looking at almonds soaking overnight and having it in the morning. They are still doing that. But does the younger consumer do that? Do the young millennials, Gen Z, do they do that? No. Even I don't do that sometimes, now that I don't live with my parents. So you have to give them ways to make it easier to consume the product.
Sure.
You have to play with that psyche. Sometimes you have to state the obvious. So when we launched our trail mixes, we launched a product called the sports mix.
Sure.
Now, we positioned the product like that. It could have been named as mixed dry fruits, but we didn't do that. We named it sports mix. So then it just plays with that consumer's mindset that, okay, I'll have it before or after sports. And when sports comes to your mind, then any activity comes to your mind, right? And I think sports is a vibe. It's something that is high energy. So people feel good consuming something like that. We came up with a name called Mom's Superfood Mix, and that was during COVID. And the thought behind that was that you're staying away from your parents, you're not able to travel back home. So we have Mom's Love in a pack for you. So it's an emotion. After cracking the business fundamentals and great quality of the product, you have to play with the emotion of the consumer. And that's what we did. We tapped into that emotion with the product names that we did. And that worked really well. Now, you think about it. Would you feel good saying that I'm having sports mix, or would you feel good saying that I'm having mixed dry fruits?
Yeah.
So that's how we connected. And that's where the branding, marketing aspect comes in. And again, authenticity, right? Like, we believe in being 100% authentic. We were not trying to sell something just for the sake of selling. Even sports mix was actually designed in a way that it gives good energy and high protein. So we did have facts to back us.
Sure.
There are a lot of people who just put claims and facts out there just for the sake of putting the facts out there. But consumers are very smart today.
Yeah.
I always tell my team that the consumer is very smart. You have to just understand that what they need and talk to them. They will help you come up with solutions. So all our new product ideas, what we need to do next, all comes from them.
That's amazing.
So it's all responding to the consumers.
Absolutely. No, that's phenomenal. Can we also break down who exactly this customer is? So if you had to give us like a broad sense of, where are the customers coming from? Is, are nuts still a very luxurious tier 1 category, or is it across the country? Which kind of age bracket is really consuming it? Have our parents, like the 45 plus audience also picked up, or are they still resorting to the traditional unbranded sort of play? And what are the channels that are dominating? You started off as a sort of retail brand.
Yeah.
Now there is quick commerce, there's e-commerce, and then there is retail. How has that sort of split emerged for you? I would love to understand those insights.
Yeah, absolutely. So the beauty with nuts is that everyone's a consumer.
Yeah.
From maybe a couple of years after you're born to like forever.
Right.
And people consume it, give it to their kids. The younger generation is consuming it for health, for snacking. People who are fitness conscious, they're consuming it before or after their workouts. Then the older millennials are used to having it. It's ingrained in them because their parents have been giving them those almonds soaked overnight and had in the morning. So now when they think of snacking on something healthy, they think of nuts. Our parents' generation, they are also looking at it like a healthy snack now. And that also evolved with like we put this out there in the market. There were more brands that came out in the market, and they started positioning nuts as snacks. They started kind of evolving the way that nuts and dry fruits were presented. The traditional stores are of course still there. वो dry fruit stores होते थे जहाँ पे लोग जाते थे and they used to buy from those bins. They are still there, and I would say that 50, 60-year-olds plus, they would still buy from those stores. But now if they want to buy for their kids, or if they want to gift it to somebody, they want to gift it in a presentable manner. everyone's also become very brand conscious and quality conscious. So they're like, okay, if something is packaged neatly, it's been there since 16 years. We have the trust. There is a legacy since 1887, since 6 generations. We trust this brand. You know, and one thing this category still operates on actually is trust. That is something that's ingrained in our subconscious about this category because of the way it's been consumed since generations. So the trust factor is there in the older generations, 40, 50, 60 plus. And the health factor, the fitness oriented factor is there in the younger generations, Gen Z and millennials. Now, that's an overall consumer base of the nuts and dry fruits ecosystem. For Nutty Gritties, most of our consumers are millennials. They are between 30 to 40, 45-year olds. They are, double income households, people with young kids. They've been consuming our brand since a decade. Our repeat percentage is more than 50%.
Oh, wow.
In fact, we've had very interesting stories where people have started feeding their kids our salted almonds when they were like 4 years old. And today, that same girl who was 4 years old is 16 years old. And along her journey, she's only had Nutty Gritty salted almonds.
Wow.
There have been instances where her mother has actually given her some other salted almonds. And, she's like, Mom, this is not Nutty Gritties. I'm not going to have that. And she recognizes that. And that for us is a success story.
Absolutely.
For us, what is a success story is when a mother comes to us and tells us that, I struggled to give my daughter almonds. She did not have it. She would just throw away those soaked almonds. But when they picked up a packet of Thai chili blend, she literally picked out all the almonds from the Thai chili blend and finished it up. Thank you, Dinika, for creating this. So that's a success story.
Absolutely.
And
that
that's
must be so gratifying.
It's literally what I thrive on.
Yeah.
So
I can only, it shows on your face as well as you share it.
yeah,
It's amazing.
absolutely.
Yeah. No, that's incredible. In terms of channels, how has the brand evolved, and is there a journey to it? And as like quick commerce picks up, do you have a separate strategy from an NPD lens or an SKU lens as well? What do you recommend? Like, how do founders like you who've kept at it for such a long time evolve with such fast evolving trends in the market? Like, what has that been, and what's your framework for that?
Yeah, so retail is still a very strong channel.
Okay.
In fact, just last year, we expanded our footprint of our cities from 35 plus to 100 plus.
Oh, wow.
We're really accelerating the growth in retail. That being said, Q-commerce is a brilliant channel. It's given us access and the convenience factor that we actually bank upon to people. And quick commerce is almost 35% of our revenue right now.
That's amazing.
And growing, right? Like double-digit, triple-digit growths sometime over years. There are some channels which are, of course, great that do well for us in quick commerce itself. There are some channels that are struggles, but it's okay. I think that's with every brand. Another one that we focused on is actually strategic distribution. So whether cafes. So I was actually telling someone the story just yesterday is that in 2010, we cracked our first cafe chain. And we were across 200 of their cafes across the country. For me, that was a big win. I started doing my calculations and I'm like, oh, this is like 50 lakhs of sale right here.
Right.
But obviously that's not how it works, right? That was really naive of me back in the day at 23 years old with 1 year of experience. Now I can see how it works. But we started cracking those alternate channels. In fact, it was part of my business plan in college that we need to be where the consumer would need us, where the consumer is on the go, whether it's a cafe, whether it's a bookstore, whether it's a theater, whether it's a school canteen or a college canteen, whether it's a corporate office, a vending machine. And that has really worked very well for us, Jivraj, because the availability, airports, airlines, and that is a really good channel for us. So even, today I get pictures from my friends who are sitting in boardrooms and they're like, guess what we're being served? Nutty Gritties.
That's amazing.
So that worked, and that works even from a brand building lens.
Yeah.
Because when the customer really needs you and you're there without them having to think about it, that's a big hit.
Yeah. Subconsciously we remember it and then we'll buy it again.
Yeah, we remember it. And that helps in retail. What also helps with omnichannel presence, I'm a big believer of omnichannel presence, because in marketing and branding, if a customer sees the same product 6 times or some message or a brand 6 times, it registers in their head. Now imagine they're traveling, they're on the go. Like I mentioned, that's our customer base, right? They're going to be in airlines, airports, cafes, offices. Then obviously they're going to go to retail stores or buy on quick commerce. And when they see the product across different channels, that's your marketing done right there and then. So that's your customer acquisition
Yeah.
with distribution, supported with distribution, where you're getting revenue and not having to spend.
Yeah.
So this has enabled us to be bootstrapped.
Yeah.
So you have to think differently. I know it's very easy to go and spend those dollars on marketing, on quick commerce, performance marketing, Facebook, Instagram, Google. It's very easy. It's very important as well, but that's a slippery slope.
Yeah.
You need some things to support that.
Absolutely.
So, in terms of the channel distribution, I'm a big believer in omnichannel presence since day one. Even when we started retail, we were building on cafes. That time it did not work well because, again, that time people were not really accepting nuts as a snack.
Sure.
But now every single cafe has roasted almonds and roasted cashews. Every single airline has roasted almonds and roasted cashews.
Yeah.
And more the merrier, you know.
Absolutely. No, that's amazing. That's a lovely insight. I think, again, for founders listening, they need to figure out alternative channels beyond the ones which are already established to actually figure out recall, figure out like lower CAC, figure out
Right.
brand. So thank you so much for sharing. I'd love to also maybe understand that, considering that I think the market has become competitive, how do you what's the thought process there? Because it's very easy to sort of replicate what others are doing, and it feels like the norm has been that if you're in a competitive space, you do have to raise, and other people also get compelled to raise. And some legacy brands also, like a company like Drools, eventually ended up raising P money, right? How have you thought about competition, staying bootstrapped, sticking to what you know best, which is great fundamentals, profitability, and not being driven by the market? But how does a market dynamic impact a company doing well? I'd love to understand from you.
Yeah, surely. I think, so I see them as two separate journeys. It's the journey of your own brand and it's the journey of the industry. The industry is, of course, evolved. When we started, 99.9% was unorganized. Right? Today, 80% is unorganized, 20% is organized. Now, the organized is taking the pie from the unorganized, and plus the dry fruit industry is also growing at about 10%.
Right.
The organized one is growing at 25%.
Got it.
Last year we grew by 45%. This year we're set to grow by 73%. And what is enabling that? That is enabling us not by not looking at our competition and the industry as much, but focused on our path. If you look at the economy, if you look at the market dynamics, the economy slow right now, there's that you end up getting dejected and feel like, oh, you know what, I might need more money for this. I might need more, I might need to do things differently. But if you're focused on your own journey and focus on your next small wins, right? What is it that you have to do in the next quarter? What is it that you have to do in the next 6 months? And what is the possibility that your brand has to do in the next 6 months, regardless of what's happening in the ecosystem? So competition is great and it's helping the market evolve. It's actually helping increase the size of the market. Now, within that big size of the market, what is it that you need to focus on for your brand, for your journey, with your strengths? Understanding why are the consumers buying you? Why is the customer buying Nutty Gritties and not another brand? Understand that and scale that up. When you look at it from that lens, then the competition won't affect you. Because I think the ocean's too vast. And the potential and possibility is there. And I really wish for the success of every single brand out there. But we're really hyper focused on our journey. Another thing that really helps us is being narrow and deep. Along the journey, a lot of people come to me and ask me that, do you want to launch almond milk and nut butters and granola and this and that? And of course, it's very easy to launch that, right? And that's the path a lot of brands have taken. But if you take that path, you fail in your business fundamentals. If you fail in your finance and operations, no matter what you do in brand building and marketing, you cannot succeed. At some point, you will have a downfall.
Right.
Now, how narrow and deep has helped us is that it's helped us optimize operations. It's helped us also make it very simple in the minds of the consumer that this is a brand for snacking on nuts, snackable nuts. It's helped us keep our SKUs limited. So that means limited working capital, higher throughput, In fact, we're working on our Diwali gifting range, and we're constantly seeing that what can we cut out, what can we cut out, what can we do minimally.
Yeah.
Because when you do minimal things, you have a potential to scale much faster.
Right.
You have to lighten the load so that you can fly faster.
That's amazing. I think in a world where a lot of the insight is also, keep growing, grow SKUs, do new products. You're talking about minimalism. You're talking about like a very refreshed insight of focus.
Yeah.
And I love that, and it's worked so beautifully for you. So I think that's a great insight to keep in mind, which is keep the narrow and depth focus, and you'll probably keep winning your game, and the others will come and go while you keep succeeding. So that's amazing. On the health trend overall, Dinika, is that like a real trend? Like, are people really focusing on fiber? Because the narrative seems like it is, but what are the numbers telling you? Like, has the intent changed from this is the right snacking product or this is very good for my health, which can be different sometimes, or is it the same? Like, how are you seeing this evolve? And if you have insights to what people focusing on healthy snacking can do today in ancillary spaces, would love to hear that.
Yeah, so health is definitely a trend, and there's more awareness out there, right? There's so many bloggers, there's so many YouTubers, there's videos, nutritionists, and people are putting more data out there. Although with so much information out there, there's still a few things that people focus on, like protein.
Yeah.
You know, and again, it's about stating the obvious. I'm a health conscious person, but I forget that what I need to have. I forget to have my micro and macronutrients as well. But one thing I know is that I must have my full protein intake,
Right.
or my fruits and vegetables.
Right.
Now, fiber means fruits and vegetables. There's a few things in our head that correlate to certain macros and micronutrients.
Right.
So we have to understand what that is
And simplify.
and simplify it. Like, simplification is the game, not to overcomplicate. And even in that health trend, if people are looking at starting something in related to wellness is great. Like, more and more people are going towards wellness. But you have to understand that what is that niche that you are trying to capture in wellness, because you can't capture everything.
Yeah.
There's sleep, which is becoming important.
Yeah.
You're seeing there's sleep trackers, fitness trackers, that has emerged. So you can definitely build something around sleep.
Sure.
You can definitely build something around protein. But then if you're building something around protein, don't try to like also do
XYZ.
XYZ after that. That is all there. So there's potential for sure, and it's going to keep growing because of the way that the world is going right now, right? Mental health is another industry that has potential to be cracked. And that's going to increase even more because as social media, as AI grows, people are going to become lonelier.
Yeah.
They're already becoming very lonely. So that's where community building comes into play. Building networks or communities where like-minded people get to connect with each other in person. So that's what we started actually. It was a passion project of mine, and I've been wanting to build a community because every time I would have independent conversations with people, people would be like, oh my God, that's such a fresh change. I don't have these conversations with people. And then I thought that if I'm able to have these conversations with people independently, why can't these people actually come together and have these conversations with each other?
Yeah.
And people would always feel happy and fulfilled after that. So that's the feeling that we're going for eventually, right? I mean, we're all here to do business, we're all here to build brands, but we're all here to also be happy and peaceful. And the happier you are, the more peaceful you are, the more productive you're going to be.
Absolutely.
So again, I just also identified that niche of connecting like-minded people who are interested in wellness to each other. And that's how we tapped into building a community. And people are loving it.
That's amazing.
So
yeah, no, those are amazing insights. Again, I think within the health ambit, simplify and relate with what people already understand is my
Yeah.
takeaway. We've spoken about the demand side and branding and the products. Let's maybe understand the team aspect as well, right? As a solo founder in a new business, creating a category, how have you thought about and learned the team skill? Because I constantly hear on the podcast that the human side of the business is perhaps the most difficult, right? And you have different stakeholders. You have your factory, you have your customers, and then the team to build. What has that journey been like for you as a solo founder? If you can share with us, how have you thought about team and also emerging skill sets, right? Like, I mean, today everybody's talking about in marketing, leveraging AI, everybody's talking about, so many different things. What is your thought process on that?
Yeah, so building the team has been one of my biggest challenges, but one of my biggest gratifying moments as well. And I've been a big believer of building leaders from within the organization and enabling people, empowering people. That's where I thrive actually. We've had people who've like literally walked in to the factory and joined us as packaging machine operators or labor who are just packing boxes, and today they're taking care of revenue of 1.5 to 2 crores plus
That's amazing.
within a span of 6 years and 7 years. Now, why that works is because that person has the values fully ingrained in him.
Yeah.
They understand the brand from inside out. They're not just trying to prove themselves at a surface level, they're living, eating, breathing, sleeping the brand and the product. And that's what I totally believe in. Empowering and enabling people, understanding what makes them drive. So, um, that's been most of our success stories, and most of the people in leadership right now are actually built from within the organization. And it's going to be a constant challenge because there's so much going on in this world, right? Everyone's going through challenges, and when people have their personal challenges, of course it's going to get intertwined with work. But the role of the leader is also to identify that where do you draw that fine line. Where do you actually put on your CEO hat and do what's best for the business versus best for the person. And both. Sometimes you have to take tough calls where people might think that it's tough, but it's for their best. It's for the best of the business as well. So I've had to take certain tough calls in my entire career. I've gotten stronger. It's taught me how to deal with people better. But what I totally thrive on is making people grow from within the organization. That's worked extremely well for Nutty Gritties, and I would like to continue doing that.
That's amazing. Amongst all of these functional sort of roles, right? You think supply, brand, marketing, and BD. What do you think are like some of the most crucial ones that have like really elevated the Nutty Gritties journey? If you had to like quickly summarize, like these are the 2, 3 things that you got really right. For instance, supply and product is definitely one that you mentioned as a constant trail. But if you had to just summarize, like these are the top ones, what would that look like?
Production,
Okay.
finance, operations. I think I always go back to the business fundamentals and R&D. I think those. Because when you create good business fundamentals and see sales, marketing, of course, that is there.
Unnecessary. Yeah.
That is very important. But when you give the people the right product, they will be excited about selling it.
Yeah.
A salesperson thrives on a good product.
Yeah.
A marketer thrives on a good product. So I would say that this is more important to build first. We're operations first, we're finance first. And that's what has helped us in our success. That's what actually helps attract the right talent as well.
Yeah.
People taste the product, and we're not lying. It is the best quality product in the world.
That's
They're
amazing.
like, oh my God, this is the crunchiest almond I've ever had. How can more people have this? So it attracts the right people.
Yeah, no, I love that. That's a very great summary. The contrary, what are like a couple of things where there were maybe hiccups, where the learning curves were very like long, where you felt moments where okay, this was really challenging. What were those points in time like? And maybe it could be the COVID journey. COVID was actually great, but in the middle, like maybe production must have stopped, right? How did you deal with some of those moments or some of those functional challenges?
So the toughest moment for me actually was in probably my 4th or 5th year.
Okay.
When, and I told you like 2013, 14, 2009 we started. It had been 4 or 5 years that we started, and it was not really taking off the way that I'd expected it to take off. I had these numbers in my head, and we would have done 100 crores much before. And I was very disappointed and upset that we're not doing the numbers that I expected to happen. And then my mentor told me that, Dinika, when you're trying to build a consumer brand, 6 years is nothing. And especially when you're trying to build a brand for the long term. Like I told you that when I started Nutty Gritties, I wanted to build the best nuts brand in the world. Now this journey is not going to be a couple of years. This is a couple of decades. I think that what am I going to be doing when I'm 80 years old? in the business. I mean, when the business is also like 80 years old, I tell the team that your grandchildren and your great grandchildren will know you as the founding team of DRB Foods and Nutty Gritties. So, I had to really ground myself back into the values and the principles and the vision of the brand in my fifth year or so, where I was really struggling to see that if this is really going to work. And when my mentor told me that you have to get over that 6 year itch, I was like, okay, fine. And then 6 years happened. We continued innovating because that's where the energy came from, right? Like over the last 15 years, we've developed almost 150 products. So we continued doing the right thing, continued responding to the consumer, innovating, focusing on the next step, cracking one customer at a time. And then COVID happened. And when COVID happened, Jivraj, we had a 10-year solid foundation.
And you were ready for the moment.
We were ready. And that's when I realized that some things happen for the best. Because we had that 10-year solid foundation where we had operations, finance, product, people sorted. When COVID happened, our factory was not shut for even a single day. Because of the supply chain, which you asked me earlier, because of the strength that we had the ability to supply to the Amazons and the retail who needed the product when not another single brand could supply, Nutty Gritties could supply. We've done sales numbers much more than what we even do today without a single rupee in marketing. So it's very important to sometimes just be grounded, focusing on the next step. And then you never know when your hockey stick growth moment will come. After COVID, we saw hockey stick growth with the grace of the universe. And I feel like we're still just getting started.
I'm sure.
So when tough times happen, you have to just put your head down, focus on what's right for the business in that time, and not even overspend and overthink. We have a frugal mindset. If you're overspending on something, whether it's resources, whether it's marketing, whether it's whatever, then you come under stress. And then you start taking decisions from that energy. You want to take decisions from an energy of creation, of positivity, of what's right for the business.
That's amazing. That is lovely to hear. It really contextualizes. I mean, founders talk about, and it's easy to sometimes understand in one line what like thinking in decades means. But when somebody who's done that talks about it from experience with context, I think it just puts it into perspective in a very different way. So thank you so much for sharing. And I'm hoping that brand founders watching can, take an ounce of inspiration and keep at it.
Absolutely.
Keep at it for the 10 years that it needs them to keep at it for the hockey stick growth. That's phenomenal. Let's maybe now come to towards the end, we ask a similar set of questions to a bunch of founders, which are more personal in nature. And so the first one there to you is, if you weren't building Nutty Gritties in a world where, let's say, nuts and dry fruits didn't exist, what would you be doing instead?
I think I would be coaching or mentoring because I love enabling and empowering people.
That's amazing. If I had to ask a group of your friends to tell me something about you, what would they say?
The first thing they'd say is you're very positive. That's what I hear all the time, that you have a lot of resilience, courage, and positivity, and I see the positive in everything. For me, everything's good. It's fine.
That's amazing.
So that's one thing that they would always say.
That's amazing. If you had to tell us one, beyond positivity, one superpower that you have, like everybody has this one thing that they like just thrive in. What does that mean for you?
I think self-belief. I really, really, really believe in myself. The conviction. And the environment is a reflection of yourself. The relationship that you have with yourself is your relationship with the world. So my self-belief actually enables me to be extremely different and unconventional in every aspect of my life. So I feel like that's definitely my superpower.
That's amazing. In the last 16 years, if you had to summarize like the 2-3 highest moments for you, like the most gratifying moments, what would that look like?
When I see people grow, like I mentioned, the person who is taking care of 2 crores of business right now, when I reflect on his journey or his win, that's very gratifying for me. When a consumer comes and tells me that you've helped me make my child healthier, that's extremely gratifying for me. I recently rescued a street dog, And the doctor said that there's only 0.1% chances of her survival. And even if she survives, she's going to be paralyzed throughout. Today, she's outside my factory, and when she runs towards me, that's the most gratifying moment for me.
That's amazing. That is so lovely to hear. For the second last question, we often go to a point in time so that we can summarize the learnings of a significant other. So let's say you went to the 2009 graduation ceremony of USC, right? And you had to tell the young Dinika something. What does that look like?
I would just say be patient. And I know I keep talking about long term thinking and thinking in decades, but it takes a lot of work to think like that as well. It takes a lot of work on yourself. I've lost my patience a lot of times, and that has led me to react in certain ways. If I were just to be more patient emotionally, have more balanced emotions, then I would conserve so much more energy. So I would actually tell the young Dinika that just conserve your energy and do not react. Be balanced.
That's amazing. That is a great, great one to sort of summarize everything that we've discussed. On the last question, like a lot of the, this conversation is to simplify or really decode entrepreneurship in a meaningful way. When somebody looks at you and thinks of a 16-year-old entrepreneur, right, in the same space, keeping at it, motivated, we're doing this on a Thursday afternoon, and you're like talking with the same passion that I'm guessing you started with. I don't want to like stereotype and say like maybe what keeps you going, but what is it that on a day-to-day basis you derive energy with, and where does this entrepreneurial passion come from? If you can, quickly just like talk to us about that depth, I think that'll be a very fitting end.
Day to day, surrounding myself with the right people, to be very honest, that fuels me as well. When I see people inspired and driven, that helps me get back on the ground when I'm down and out. That's happened to me recently as well. But also having a routine of my own. I have a daily yoga practice, a daily meditation practice. I always seek good mentors and gurus. I have a great yoga guru right now where I go practice yoga. And anytime I'm feeling low, I always seek help from him. So I'm a big seeker. I'm very curious. And I don't shy away from asking for help. So anytime I'm feeling low on energy, I always reach out, whether it's gurus, mentors, friends, or family. And what fuels me and what keeps me inspired and going is surrounding myself with the right people.
That's amazing. Amazing. I think this has been such a fitting end, and I think what a lovely conversation. My biggest takeaways are, keeping the focus, keeping at it for as long as it takes to really figure out the growth journey. And I think a constant thread has also been like giving and like serving people, be it
Right.
from your product, be it by surrounding yourself with them or empowering them to do great work, which is what you mentioned in many bits and pieces, which is incredible. Thank you so much for being on the show, Dinika. This has been an absolute pleasure. I certainly have learned a ton, and I'm hoping everybody who stuck around till here would have definitely learned so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Jivraj. Thank you. It was great talking to you as well and sharing my journey.
Amazing.
Hello. If you made it this far, you've probably watched the entire episode. And if you've done that, I'm really grateful. I and my team try to put in a lot of effort to ensure that we can bring the best quality content to you. So if you liked the episode, if you watched it thus far, my request to you is to share it with people, to subscribe to the channel, and to ensure that we can keep growing. We are everything and anything only because of you, our listeners. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll keep bringing to you amazing content. Cheers.